What is going on, family? It is your boy Low Daddy back again with another episode of Teach Us Something Cool. Now, Teach Us Something Cool, it's like a book club, but for learning cool shit. We do that every single Wednesday night at 8:30 p.m. Central Standard Time over on Clubhouse. It's an invite-only app. If you need an invite, leave a comment below. I'm happy to share the wealth with you if I have any invites this week at my disposal. Basically every single week we have a new topic set by the panel and set by our community over on Discord. If you want to join that, click on the link tree description below, and you can join it in there for free. Recommend some future topics for us to discuss, but basically we get experts on any given topic come in and they enlighten us. They teach us something cool every single week. So we'd love to see y'all there in the future. I hope y'all enjoy the video, and this week's topic is on whatever the title of the video is below. And as always, please smash that like button, smash that subscribe button, and ring the little bell next to it so that you get notified every time we go live, every time we drop new videos and new episodes on here, which should be at least once a week, if not more in the future. And as always, please, if you really like this video, leave a comment below. We'd love to hear from y'all. Hope y'all enjoy. All right. Thank you all for tuning in as always and every week. This is your disclaimer, your friendly reminder. This conversation is being recorded. It will be posted on YouTube for those people who are not fortunate enough to join us in this conversation today so they can listen on later. Please do not say anything that you are not comfortable having on the internet because, like I said, it will be posted to YouTube. If you don't like swearing, do not swear. I swear on the internet every day, so I've got no fucking issue with it. But moving forward, this conversation topic is pretty self-explanatory if you read the title. We're going to be talking about the cannabis industry. We're going to have experts in this industry who are speaking, living, experts who live, in the industry every single day. They know it way better than we do. I've talked to them for a little bit this week, and the stuff that they're going to tell you tonight is going to blow your mind most likely. You will not find this stuff anywhere on the internet. So yeah, bring your questions, bring popcorn, and Connor, you have anything you want to add before we get going?
Yeah, basically, we do this every Wednesday. If you want to add more or take a point of view on what we should do next, we have a Discord. It's in Mike's bio. I think that's all I got. I know that we are going to kick it off with a couple topics, but we're going to start with the business of cannabis and specifically about how the industry has transitioned into legal markets and with this new legislation. I'm actually going to direct this question to Slater. What percentage of your clients, Slater, are drug dealers?
I don't know if I can answer that one.
So maybe not what percentage of your clients, Slater, are drug dealers or past drug dealers. Maybe I guess
Absolutely zero is the answer. We only do business with licensed registrants in California. But I think what you're getting at a little bit there is just the culture and the stigma around cannabis too. Despite the legalization, in California we've had some semblance of a legal market for over a decade now, and the culture and the people in the industry still are mostly from the illegal game. So it's carried over a lot of those characteristics and attitudes of those people.
Can I join in for 1 second here?
Yeah.
Okay, this is Craig X. Some of you guys might know me from the movies or Weeds, but I think that it's at least 50%. I had like 60% of my clients were former weed dealers up until last year, and I tried convincing many of them to come join me in the CBD hemp revolution, and we use kind of a model that is similar to multi-level marketing, because marijuana has traditionally been the largest multi-level marketing business in the world.
So right now, 50-50, that's the answer I was looking for.
So,
that's been my experience.
And Craig, why do you think that is with the CBD industry even? 'Cause aren't there a lot more larger entrants in that industry that are kind of taking a more regulated path and working with bigger companies? Why do you think that culture has sustained itself?
I think it's happening because they're the ones making money, and they're the ones actually on the street doing it, and some of them are buying hemp and CBD and selling it as weed illegally, because once you have the intention to sell it as weed and mislead people, but they're making such huge profits that it's incentivizing them to do that.
Right. Yeah, that's something I've heard about a lot, especially for some of you people in the room that might not be from California. I have a slight suspicion that maybe some of the tops you're smoking over there are actually the Cali hemp lows with some terps on them.
In New York, it's
jokes, but
sometimes.
So how do they get the weed out of the state? You know, how does it?
New York, it's like it's a completely different market, and their exposure to good weed, the science of it is different. And so a lot of the times, or not a lot of times, I'm not gonna put that on anyone, but like there's people who will mix that with CBD. Like I do it for myself when I make flower last longer in my personal supply in New York.
And being in New York, Trevor, what do you think about legalization happening over the last week? Do you think it's going to take over by storm, or are people going to hang on to the more gray black market?
I'm actually stuck in Los Angeles until at least Saturday when my sister gets out of town because I'm dog sitting for her. But it's my dream to happen in New York. If New York, it's a huge step towards federal, which changes the voting structure even of America. Like it would be a huge step.
Quick room reset for people who are just joining in. We're talking about the cannabis industry and the ins and outs. If we could get a quick rundown from Slater, Craig, and Trevor, you guys sound like you guys are the experts. Just what you do and what you think, where we're at within the marijuana industry as a whole. We can start with Slater.
Cool. Yeah, thanks, Hunter. My name's Slater Heil. I live in San Luis Obispo, California, and been in the cannabis industry for almost a year now, and hemp and cannabis industry for about 2.5. And actually came from the tech world before that. After I left college, was in business of creating software for a couple of years, and saw the opportunity of CBD and hemp in 2019, and made the transition after seeing both the financial opportunity, of course, which was massive, especially in 2019, and just the tremendous impact that the medicinals and all of the different components that are extracted and utilized from the cannabis plant, the tremendous impact that they've had on people's lives. And been in for 2 years, like I said, working on building a distribution in San Luis Obispo now, and also working on one of the top 5 biggest farms should be permitted in next March.
This is Craig, and I've been in the cannabis space for about 43 years, and I started working with Jack Hare, volunteering down at the beach in Venice in the late 70s, and I've been involved in a lot of different things. I run 2 websites, MyFamRich and MyBuddyRich.com, where we do huge discounts as soon as you buy more than one of any product, so you can sell it to your friends. So we're trying to encourage the traditional distribution of cannabis, whether it's hemp or marijuana, through personal channels to keep it out of the corporate hands.
Hey, my name is Trevor. So to start, at the age of 6, I sat behind my godfather. Like my godfather had a dispensary, and it was half of it was dispensary and half of it was purses and personal items, and that would be Craig. And at 6 years old, just learning, like observing as an Aquarius. And so I've spent my entire life learning. And at this point, my next project, one of them is for Craig. I'm directing something for him. And then at the same time, I'm doing a deeper dive into the stock market, investing in the concepts of value and stuff like that.
That's awesome, guys. I guess, since you brought up the stock market, we can head that way to start. Is that cool with you guys?
I mean,
Yes.
Cool with me. Guys, I'm with my parents. I do have to go to dinner pretty soon, so I'm just letting you know. I don't want to be rude and slip out, so I'm listening, and I'll continue to listen.
No worries, Greg. Thanks for joining.
Thanks for having me, guys. My pleasure.
So who are we seeing? You know, there's a lot of major players, and I think that we're going to see a lot of major players enter the game as it starts to get legalized federally in the United States. But the major players we're seeing so far are Canadian-based, from my understanding. I think the leader is Canopy Growth currently, and then you've got Aphria and Tilray, who are going through a merger in Q2 of 2021. That should complete. So I guess from what y'all are seeing, one, who do you think really has the lead and the grasp on this industry right now? Who do you see as a potential person or potential suitor who might catch them? And what companies that are currently private in the United States would you say are the most notorious in the industry?
Sorry, Mike, I had to send a few texts back, and I actually was totally tuned out for that question. I apologize.
It's all good. Yeah, basically, I'm just looking to see, like, you guys see this industry better than any of us can, and any of us will have the opportunity to do for the foreseeable future when you're on the battlegrounds. So, one, I guess, in the United States, who would you say is the leader countrywide as far as privately held companies go? Because we don't really have any public cannabis companies yet in the United States, just due to the legal nature.
It would be based in Colorado.
Based in Colorado.
That would be my personal opinion, yes.
So, do you guys basically see those guys winning out? I mean, they've built a brand, or I mean,
it's not a win thing. It's like
here's what I
so it's just they have more access legality-wise.
I remember going to the very first Hemp Industry Association show. There was 100 people a year and a half ago at the December MJ Biz show in Vegas. There was 50,000 companies. I think that the ones that are intelligent and have a heart will be the ones that make it. And right now I see companies where I know, like Joe Montana's investing a lot of money. They're losing money. They're paying for customer acquisition. But they're trying to develop a base of canna boomers, people like Trevor's age, who have grown up with cannabis legalization, and it seems natural for them more compared to people my age. But it's an interesting thing, and it's hard to tell who the winners and losers are going to be right now, but it's going to be based on management, because I've seen some companies come up, have 2-3 good years, and then they tried to level up too quickly and lost millions the following year.
Yeah, I think that's happening in a lot of cases right now, and it is interesting because, like Craig has said, traditionally cannabis was distributed in almost a traditional multi-level marketing sense, where it was the dealer that was closest to you, the grower that was closest to you, and then the distributor in between that would make it to those customers. But nowadays, where we have legitimate logistics and products can be spread to different parts of the state right now, not the whole country, I think brands are building, and people are using celebrities more and more, because so many of the digital marketing channels that other companies use are cut off for the cannabis industry. But at the end of the day, it is about the grower. It is about the area that it came from, or the technique that was used, and the genetics that were used, more so than the brand, which is a lot different than other industries. So I don't really know how to answer that question. I don't really know the right answer to that question, but I think cannabis will always keep somewhat of a boutique-y feel to the industry, and that small batch growers will continue to have a strong following and grow themselves more so than I think corporate companies will continue to generate a lot of resentment from the main people in the industry.
I think so as well. I think that the way, I mean, when it's finally federally legalized, it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when at this point, right? And the way I see it playing out is I think that there will be big winners, people who capture the mass market share. So sort of like the beer industry, right, where you see the people who've been around forever who capture the mass market share. You got Budweiser, you got Miller, you got Coors, you got Anheuser-Busch, right? I see it kind of playing out like that, but at the same time in that industry you have people who love the small guys, right? The craft beers, the little guys who make just great product that aren't interested in capturing the entire market. They're more interested in the quality of their product and making sure that the people who they serve are just super enthusiastic and become evangelistic for their product.
So I had a quick question. Hi guys, this is Travis. I'm new to this space, but I have a technical background, and that kind of helps me understand what goes on with it. But in terms of business growth, you kind of have to, for somebody who doesn't understand like me, I think it might help to explain it a little differently. The way I see it, and please correct me if I'm wrong, but maybe this is right, maybe this is not. Uber, for example, took away from the big taxi companies, right? Much like Uber, and Uber's publicly owned, not privately owned. But is that kind of the similar route as to how you think cannabis companies can grow and can scale up in terms of privately owned and being about the grower, as you mentioned?
The point that I would like to point out about Uber, because I worked at a boxing gym on the west side of Los Angeles, and it was right next to Uber West Coast's headquarters. And so we had a deal, and the Uber West Coast people would come in, and what I came to realize was that Uber had promised all these people stocks when they were done, and then they just went so long to go public that these people kept having to leave the company and lose their stocks. And so it was really ineffective way to actually create a company.
Okay. But I guess in terms of a concept like paying individuals who own their own vehicles, for example, individual growers who own their own plants to then distribute and or provide services in that manner, do you see that as being a viable option? Obviously not having the false promises and open-endedness there, but do you see it as a potential scale-up opportunity, or I guess trying to help see
just to get some clarity on the question, Travis, are you saying that are you asking if there's room for a company like the Uber of weed that can handle deliveries at scale and bridge the gap between
Not necessarily. I'm more so asking if there's a company that can manage a network of growers, and then the growers are then responsible for distributing their own services, kind of like how Uber drivers are responsible for getting their passengers from place to place. Do you think that that type of network, because all Uber is essentially is a giant network that charges a service fee. The drivers do their own thing. Granted, the company's held responsible. Do you see that as being a viable option for the cannabis industry?
Gotcha. I think there are so there are always going to be growers and distributors, because that's, at least in California, that's the market that I'm really familiar with. I don't know if this holds true in every legal market in the United States, but at least in California, there are always going to be, there already are and always going to be distributors between the grower and the consumer, because that's the way that California has structured it. The grower cannot sell directly to a consumer right now legally. You have to sell it to a distributor. It has to get taxed at that level. That distributor has to sell it to a retailer. It has to get taxed again.
Hold on, Slater. I love you, but you're talking about if a distribution company is profitable, and I just want to say that the distribution is a word that someone can never say out loud within any industry like this.
Well, what do you mean? It's a
because it's illegal to distribute like it's illegal to because I understand.
Oh no, I run a legal cannabis distribution.
I understand that you do, but I'm saying that like I'm 28 years old, and so I understand what you're explaining, but also the way you're explaining it on a hot mic, it's with the person who was here earlier. It's dangerous. You're on a slippery slope already, and I just want to point that out.
Okay.
Not Craig, sure. The other one. Not Craig, the other guy he scammed a bunch of people out of money, like chain. Like I don't want to talk about it on the stage, but it's a whole thing. But we're talking about if selling it, like if I think Travis's question was, would a pyramid scheme for weed be profitable?
More or less, yeah. A pyramid scheme modeling that same system, yes. Would that be a good, viable growth option?
I think, multi-level marketing, you can say what you will about it. I mean, for one, I'm not eager to hop into any multi-level marketing scheme out there because most of them are pyramid schemes, right? But the concept in nature it's pretty brilliant, and you can see why it grows. And the only difference you need to make sure that you do to make it, keep it legal is it can't be a pay to play. You can't need to buy into the industry in order to, get people under you, and the only way you make money is by having people under you who are signing people up under them. That's a pyramid scheme, right? No one makes money there except for the people at the very top. But if you were to use that same kind of model where each person is, inviting 5 people and they've got no pay to play, the people below them can pass them up as well and invite their friends of their own. It's a brilliant way for growth in general. How you apply it in a way that everyone can win, I don't know here, but that's all I will say on multi-level marketing is that in the concept it's brilliant. You just can't be charging a pay to play to get in there, and you have to let people advance beyond the person who invited them. Otherwise, it's just a pyramid scheme.
Yeah, all I was trying to say, Trevor, at least, was I was trying to describe the way that the legal industry is structured in California, because I guess the answer to your question, Travis, for me is I don't see how a multi-level marketing scheme could apply, or how there could be a lot of individual actors participating in the process of cannabis sales because everybody in the legal industry has to hold a license, and license costs hundreds of thousands of dollars, and you really have to have an organization to be able to acquire one. But in the illegal industry, I think that's kind of how it has always been structured, and it has been very effective.
Understood. Lack of knowledge. My bad.
And once we're federally legal, once it's federally legal, that conversation can be had. And it like, if you can do one that's effectively, but the way that I would hypothetically discuss it is you create something that is between growers, and you create a way that the growers can then get what they have to everyone better. Because after this whole thing happened, what Craig was saying earlier is that my people my age came in not really realizing it being connoisseurs, and a bunch of growers popped up. And so the old growers aren't doing any sales, but aren't doing as many sales, but they have all the contacts and just like so much flower. And then the newer people are just growing things but have no contacts, you know what I mean, and have so much flower. So we'd have to redistribute where the weight is currently, but that's a hypothetical situation.
Right on.
So Slater, if you want to elaborate, because you talked earlier as well. Sorry, Tommy, I didn't want to cut you off there.
No, it's okay.
You know, everyone down there below listening in, you know, what I do for a living is I do online marketing, and this is one of the challenges that I know Slater has faced, as well as, you know, anyone else in the industry has faced. You can't I can't touch a company, I can't touch a cannabis company just because, you know, the typical practices that online marketers do, whether it be for organic, you know, just content building for SEO, which is what I typically do, or if you want to put together an ad campaign, whether it be on Google, social media, you know, any other kind of ad campaign you can put together, they don't let you do it for cannabis companies. They rule them all out. They put them in the same category that all the porn companies are in there, and Viagra companies. So you have to get really creative on how you're going to market these companies. And, you know, a conventional online marketer like myself, we just can't touch them right now, due to the nature of where legislation's at. So Slater, if you want to elaborate on some of the challenges you face like that in your day-to-day, trying to grow a cannabis business.
Yeah, I think it's a really interesting topic of just how cannabis businesses grow right now, because you're right that the large majority of the traditional marketing channels are either very constricted and limited or completely cut off for the cannabis industry. And it's obviously because it's federally illegal, and large federal companies control the biggest marketing channels, Facebook, whatever, billboards, banners, and they don't want to face the consequences of the federal government. And so people up in, I face that challenge every day. I mean, it's a very sales-based business right now. You kind of have to go door to door, meet people, have your boots on the ground, and network, because there's no way to amplify your message on digital media the way that you can in other companies. And you're seeing some really interesting approaches birth out of those limitations. Like, for example, I think Jungle Boys and Cookies are two great case study examples that took two kind of different approaches, where Jungle Boys has really grown a strong clothing brand and streetwear brand that has supported their cannabis brand's growth. And then Cookies has, I mean, they've been in the game forever too, but really has used the power of influence, clout, social media, and rappers to generate buzz and take new approaches to marketing cannabis. And that's led to them having one of the strongest followings of any company. They have lines around their store, and they have new drops. So yeah, we're seeing a lot of interesting stuff right now.
Yeah, Jungle Boys
is one of the oldest families in the game. You're right.
Jungle Boys is killing it right now. You know, they've expanded their reach all the way out to Illinois. You know, I've had their stuff before there too, and you know they really, you know, I think that to answer my question earlier, now even being outside the industry, it sounds like they're the ones who are winning, and they're winning the right way. Like you said, Trevor, it's going to be a real community. Whoever really captures the market share in this industry, I think they have to have a real community and family aspect to them, because that's what this industry is all about, down to the nature of.
Yeah. I've been around for a very long time. That's all I can speak on this. Like, literally all I can speak on this subject.
I have a question that I was thinking about. So I know weed was recently legalized out in Illinois not too long ago, and a lot of people complain because the tax is so high on it. And I still know a lot of people to this day who would rather order from some delivery site illegally to avoid that. How do these, how much does the illegal weed market, I guess, affect the smaller companies? I mean, obviously there's an effect, but like, how do you combat that, I guess, is my question.
Lower the taxes, and I don't really think there's any other answer the longer I'm in this industry, because it is actually absurd the percent of the value in the supply chain that is going to the government. It's well over 50% of the value that is occurring in the supply chain.
Yeah, I mean, I think that that's the only answer there is to there. I don't know if there's a way you can combat it. It's the government sets the rules. If you want to start these businesses legally, you got to play by their rules. But the shitty thing about it is these guys who set the laws, it's not like they came around to cannabis maybe not being that bad. It's more so we want money, and this way there's a market for it. We can make money as long as we tax it. But they have no idea how ridiculous their taxes are, and the nature of the game is, the I guess street people, the black market for cannabis is going to exist out there until they lower the taxes on products and the prices become comparable with the prices you get on the street. I'm not an economist or a mathematician, but if I can get an ounce of weed for $150 on the street, I'm going to do that every day of the week instead of spending $350 at a dispensary. It's absolutely absurd, and I think everyone else thinks the same exact way. You take on more risk, but it really screws over the people who take the risk of starting these businesses and small businesses because you're taxing them into oblivion.
Why would I spend $50 an eighth when I'm spending $700 an outlaw?
So, I mean, you brought up why would anybody start the business, and I think that is a good time to segue. And we're talking about taxes as well. So, isn't the marijuana business, it's kind of socialist / communistic because one, it's an incredible startup cost. Lots of bribery going on. If, Slater or Trevor, if you could give me some insight, like if I wanted to start a marijuana business tomorrow, I mean, I could start a marketing company in 5 minutes, no startup company costs nothing. What do I got to do? What are the barriers to entry to start my own grow op and distribution?
Slater first put $300,000 in cash just to get your fee, just to pay the fee, just get the licensing.
Yeah, no, exactly what Trevor said. It's very unfortunate right now. I also want to say that I don't think I can draw a correlation between socialism in the cannabis industry. I don't know about that analogy, but I do think there's lots to be said about the barriers to entry. It's an interesting topic because the way the cannabis industry grew up, and the people that love cannabis the most are the people that treat it in a boutique manner. They have a lot of respect for each individual plant and are not treating it like a row crop. But the way the government has it set up right now, really the only way that you can participate in the market is if you have hundreds of thousands of dollars of funding just to get started up, just to be able to start up the business. And then you have all your actual build-out costs and all your operating costs to actually operate it, get to a finished crop. For a grow, at least, I mean, even if it's a really small grow, you're really looking at over $1 million to get to your first crop ever. So right now, that's I don't know if there's any way around it. Yeah, and that's another one of the things the government really needs to change. Taxes need to come down for the consumer, and the startup costs and compliance costs need to become more fair and accessible to the common boutique business owner.
And so, just a quick room reset right now as well for anyone who just joined. The topic you can see right there: cannabis industry. What does the public not know? It's, pretty much self-explanatory at that point. But just want to point out, we do have some people working within the industry on the stage. Experts, or way more of an experts than any of us are, for that matter. So if you have any questions, you're not going to find much online. I promise you that. I've done my digging, and there's only so much out there. Ask them. They'll tell you more than you're going to find there. They are valuable resources. And if you have a question at any point, just click that little hand button, raise your hand. We'll invite you to the stage, and you can ask your question, and they will respectfully answer for it. To piggyback off of Slater, or I guess answer the confusion. I think the similarity between maybe not socialism but communism that Connor was pointing out is it feels like, yes, there's a high barrier to entry, but the government is deciding who is going to be a winner in this industry and who's just not going to get to play at all. If their government bids and their contracts, that's exactly what you see in communist societies. They decide who gets to play and who doesn't get to play and where their money is going to go to.
Correct. Land of opportunity, not the land of equal outcome. And in this case, it's not the land of opportunity. I need $1 million in order to start this business, and it's because the government says so. And it's not because of the nature of the business. It's literally because the government has created these barriers that don't allow me to start this business.
Well, I mean, there's the $300,000 at bar's entry, but there's other ways to structure the business for a dispensary, because dispensaries, just generally everyone who is a medical patient dispensary, so each person who has a rec can grow 6 plants. So for each patient a dispensary has, that's 6 more plants that they can grow. So it depends on what kind of operation you're trying to set up. But the initial cost to have licensing is ridiculous. It is without reasoning or justice.
Yeah, and thanks for explaining that, Mike. That actually kind of does make sense.
So, unless Slater has, or any of y'all have anything you want to add, maybe I know Zach works in the industry as a bud tender, so super knowledgeable guy on literally on the ground in the industry, I guess the end of the line. But my question to y'all would be, if you were put in a position of power, besides for the simple answer of we're just going to lower taxes, right? And that's the cop-out answer here, just forewarning. If you were put in a position of power, what would you do, or what do you see that's going wrong right now in the industry, and what changes would you make to improve, where this industry is headed? Sorry, it's a tough question to think on, I know.
Especially when you tell them it's a cop-out answer.
Well, it is a cop. It is a cop-out answer. I'm gonna stand. I'll die on that hill. It's a cop-out answer.
It is a loaded one, and yeah, those would definitely be my 2 first answers, so far you said. But I do think there is also the aspect of transparency that could be added, like kind of what Connor and you were just explaining of the government is controlling where the money goes, and it's pay to play to an extent right now. Part of that is the startup costs and the taxes that are the problem, but the other part is there's just not a lot of transparency in how the selection process even works. Even if you have the money, or maybe went out and raised the money, if you're a really passionate founder, maybe you put your entire business plan together for 6 months, went out, raised that capital, and got people to believe in you, maybe hired some people or starting to build an organization, and make all your plans for a year out in advance for your business, and then they can just turn you down, and you could be in a pool of 50 applicants and done everything amazingly, and you don't really even get a reason as to why you were denied. And so there's actually some pretty crazy controversy around that, because there was so little transparency. And the municipality that I live in, San Luis Obispo, there was some controversy with one of the supervisors, or with the supervisor board, where there's some allegations in the news about there potentially being some favoritism and potentially even some payouts that have been under investigation for a while. And there even ended up being a suicide by one of the supervisors in the last 6 months. So the stuff has just gotten really bad and kind of gross and crony, and we need transparency and fairness on both the business side and the consumer side.
I suggest you talk to Craig. If you want to DM me, Craig had a dispensary in '96. You know what I mean? Like, that's the very beginning of legality in California. It's an access to information thing. The issue is all over.
So, do you, Trevor, do you agree with a lot of what Slater said, or I guess where would you differ?
So I differ in I agree that it's not fair. I agree that this whole system is broken, and I agree that the introduction of weed federally, it's been a hard thing. From what I've heard from other people on Clubhouse is that we actually run this thing where people start talking about weed becoming legal every 10 years or so. And so the fact that we're here again now is surprising. Not surprising, but it's not surprising, is what I meant to say. And both candidates, from what I can see, were agreeing to make weed legal because of the effect it would have on the economy in general, and not on taxes. And the reason, and that's what the project I'm working on for Craig is, I'm directing a documentary about because he wrote about how the effect that we would have on economics. He's proved it with CBD, like by removing the illegality of it in West Virginia. Like he has a CBD research facility, and so I agree with all of your points, but also I'm frustrated for you because that's all true.
Don't worry, man. I'm not going through it myself. I'm lucky to be part of a very well-funded organization. I'm not really the owner of, but I see it happening everywhere, and it's really sad.
Zach, what are you seeing in the dispensaries? Like, what have you noticed in your time working as a bud tender? Maybe just in general to start off, and then we can go further in depth. Well, Zach.
Hey,
Okay.
sorry, Mike. I'm actually at work right now. I'm just listening in right now.
Okay, never mind. He's doing the Lord's work right now, guys. So we'll have to
Doing
keep
the
some new
Lord's work,
questions.
selling the weed, man.
All right, round of applause. All right. So,
Move you back to the audience.
yeah, good call. Again, if anyone has any questions in the audience at any point, anything they want to add, just raise your hand. We'll invite you to the stage. Or if not, we do have a Discord that, if you don't want to speak in this conversation for any given reason, we have a Discord. If you go to my profile, the steps are pretty self-explanatory, and you can ask your questions in there, and we'll ask them for you if you'd like. Connor, do you have, another topic that we can, pivot to at this point? Just because I think we kind of worn this topic into the ground.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, we touched on it quick, but it's so broad. Do you guys see the marijuana industry going the cigarette brand route? We're talking Marlboro, Camel, or is it going to be like a fine wine where you got a broad spectrum? They don't really market. Marlboro, you had the Marlboro man. Camel, you had that Camel that talked all the time and was on cool shirts. So where do you guys think it's going to go in that regard?
Are you saying assuming that there will be a federal market?
Correct.
And Marlboro and all of the cigarette companies have the most money in research probably towards this than anyone else. There are going to be more brands that we're competing against.
Yeah, so I guess the final iteration of that question is, are they gonna go full push and become branded, heavily branded, or is it gonna be more of the wines of the world where they're not really heavily branded? There's so many of them and people buy different ones from different vineyards.
I want to open this one up to Max for sure. He's one of my friends that works in the wine industry, and we talk about the development of the cannabis industry pretty frequently. But yeah, I mean, Max, first of all, do you agree with that assessment that Connor just kind of laid out of the wine industry? And then, how do you think it compares to cannabis, how that will develop?
Yeah, what's up, guys? So I've been looking at kind of the relationship between wine and weed and how they can go a bit more together. I feel like I see a lot of people moving toward looking at weed as more of a wine because of the actual terpene content and the actual study of how to consume it, how to taste it, how to smell it. But at the same time, I do see people moving a little bit more toward kind of becoming more of a cigarette-y style, more because they're owned by bigger companies. They're advertised as bigger products. You see things like cookies where it's a brand as a clothing brand more than an actual cannabis brand. I can see it definitely leaning toward becoming more like a wine, and I definitely want it to become more like that, but I can also see how a lot more because it's set with distributors instead of actually with producers. Kind of like in the wine industry, fine wine is produced by people close to the grapes, but I feel like it's more advertised nowadays or weed is more advertised nowadays as being kind of a big brand from a big company, if that makes sense.
Yeah, so, I mean, wine has Psalms, they do all the spirits, they do wine, they even do cigars. Will marijuana make its way into the Psalm playbook?
Sorry, just turned off my mic there for a second. Definitely, I think it's starting to move toward it, and actually that's a lot of what I'm trying to do right now. I'm studying to become a sommelier, and so I'm studying actually the wine matrix, and it's actually branching chart of a way to identify exactly what you're tasting and how good it is. I actually feel like because wine is starting to, or weed is starting to move toward having people look at it like that, and kind of entering more of like a household economy or a household situation where you find a lot of people that are more interested in the finer part of it instead of just the getting high side of it. I feel like definitely when we start identifying how to look at it, which I was actually looking at recently was terpene profiles is a big one because it identifies smells, tastes, as well as effects. I feel like when we actually break that down and have people that are capable of identifying those in the same way a sommelier identifies wine, we'll find ourselves in a much different, I guess, a much more fine style of consuming, I guess.
Yeah, I would agree. I think that I think we'll have the more wholesale Marlboro type of brands, but yeah, I think it'll be kind of a fusion between cigarettes and wine. But I will say what Max is talking about with the terpenes. If you aren't familiar with terpenes, cannabis plants produce terpenes and cannabinoids, and the two combine to create the entourage effects. Cannabinoids there's 80 of them, but really it's THC, CBD, CBG, CBN. THC obviously being the most prevalent one in cannabis, and then it's THC that creates your high, and then it's really the terpenes that steer the high and make you feel uppity or sleepy or whatever it is. There's a lot of different effects that the entourage effect can create. So, as an industry insider, that is the operating system and the way that everybody understands cannabis within the industry, but it has been really slow to move on to the end consumer. Like, still 95 or 98% of the people that walk into a cannabis dispensary still don't even know what the fuck a terpene is. So it's interesting because I agree, Max, that that's how wine developed, and it's the sommeliers. It's kind of like everybody tries a little bit to be a sommelier while you're drinking different wines, tasting different wines. But it's been really slow to develop in cannabis, but I do think we'll get something similar.
So, I guess in line with wine, sommeliers, they can tell you by just tasting the wine, they can tell you where it was grown, right, or where the vineyard was. They can tell you, I mean, that pretty much everything you need to know about what wine they're drinking just on taste. Do you, or I guess, do y'all see anything like that in the industry right now? Like, I guess my best question would, or the best way to put the question would be, like, weed grown in California, does it have the same, I guess, taste, the same effects, the same consistencies of weed grown anywhere else in the country, whether it be Colorado, whether it be in Illinois in an indoor grow, or, on the East Coast, maybe, I don't know where it's legal out there. But, is there a difference in where it's grown and how it comes out? Or do we not know?
even within California, there are definitely differences in the different areas and how the grow comes out. But I think right now, I don't know. I'm not really a grower, but I read occasionally about this stuff. I think now the research is still kind of coming out, but I know from a compliance perspective, that is a massive thing in wine. They have their terroir and their area that a wine bottle is defined by, and that structure is already starting to be put in place for cannabis as well. So if you're applying for a cannabis permit right now, that's one of the things you look over, what area you're part of. So they are establishing that kind of description of growing areas for cannabis as well. But I don't really know much about how it materializes in the plant.
And so do you see it kind of like Napa Valley, right? Where I guess it'll either play out like Napa Valley, where the best wine in the world is supposedly grown in Napa Valley. You go there, there's vineyards as far as you can see, and it's just a great overall experience. And the most comparable place I've seen for that, I don't think it applies to so much weed being grown there as much as it's kind of been a hub in California for a long, long time, is Humboldt County, right?
It's Trinity County, Humboldt City.
It's what?
It's Trinity County, Humboldt City.
Gotcha. Thank you, Trevor. So Trinity County, or just Humboldt, was it Humboldt Park?
So Humboldt is one city in 3 cities, and so it's Trinity because it's 3 of them together. I'm not sure what the other 2 are off the top of my head.
Also, the best wine in the world is probably from France, not California.
Yeah, I drink IPAs, so I'm not the guy.
Napa's the heart of Cabernets, for sure.
All right, well, this is where I'll kind of chip in here. Definitely better made wine in California than in France for a lot of different reasons.
So not music is not champagne list.
It's all on the taste. It's all on the taste.
You know, as soon as we started talking about wine, we just had 10 hands raised up from the crowd. So, no, yeah, I don't know shit about wine. I drink beer, but you know that's the best comparison I can see is like the polar opposites, right? I think Humboldt or Trinity County, it got so popular because that's like the distribution hub, where it's just you can find a bunch of really good product there. I think it's different than the Napa Valley in that aspect.
Yeah.
Where are the oldest farms at?
Well, so I was actually looking at this one doctor that was studying kind of it's mainly just his terpene studies, but he was discussing the intersection between wine and weed. And he was talking about basically like when it comes to wine, wine grows to have more flavor because of stress. And if you were to stress, or if the grapes were grown outdoor mainly, in certain areas that had them under different types of stress and different types of environment, they would actually develop different terpenes that were actually more effective. So in that sense, with or growing in certain different areas, depending on like the terroir in wine terms, is like the environment, the type of soil, the type of minerals, the marine layer that's around it. If weed is grown outdoor, then it should have a similar kind of unique fragrance and terpene profile based on where it's grown.
I do enjoy the wine-weed correlations. Real quick though, I know Mark. You know he's been sitting up here for a minute. I know he's got a question. So
I definitely do. So, does anyone know the difference between Delta 8 and Delta 9 that makes Delta 8 be able to be sold by just like a vape shop at, for example, Uncle Stu's here in Illinois? Like, why can they sell Delta 8 and it still has pretty much the same facts, but they can't sell Delta 9 with THC?
It sounds like Zach might have the answer to this one.
Yeah, let's let Zach.
So the biggest difference in Delta 8 and Delta 9, as far as it's discerned legally, is Delta 8 is going to have a non-psychoactive effect, and you can derive Delta 8 from a hemp plant, which under legal terms is legal under the Farm Bill of 2018. So that's as far as my understanding of the legality of why you can do it in a shop versus just a random shop on the street.
Yeah.
CBD derived from hemp is generally not effective because as Slater said earlier, the THC is the activating effect, even if it's a little bit. That's why I mix my weed with CBD, is because it adds more body to it.
Yeah, I think mixing cannabinoids is one of the best ways to achieve awesome effects with cannabis. But yeah, if you take Delta 8, Mark, you probably won't even feel anything. I've never really tried it personally, but solo, a lot of the minor cannabinoids do not produce much of a very noticeable effect unless you have a medical condition that you're trying to treat.
Well, I took these gummies from there. Delta 8, they're like, yeah, they're edibles. So I was like, oh yeah, I'll try them out. And then I was like, well, what's the difference? And he was like, well, pretty much, like, it's just like one active, like, ingredient in THC. It's one less, I don't know, DNA. I don't even know. But they were like, if it takes you normally, like, 2 edibles or, like, 3 edibles to get high on regular THC, this one will probably take you 5. And I actually did get high.
I got rocked by one. I don't know if they're cheating the system, but I agree, Mark. Like, I got high as fuck.
Maybe I'm just I'm too deep in the weed industry and I just can't feel it.
After tolerance break.
Yeah, maybe so.
Yeah, I mean, me and Lo are no slouches. We're pretty much, we're up there.
but I don't know. Lo, what do you think? I know you took one.
Hey guys, Mike here, cannabis smoker since 2012. No, I mean, it was all right. It wasn't like an edible, like there, I mean, I mean, you don't take like, 2 or 3 edibles, right? You're gonna take, now we have milligrams that we can, dose with so that we don't end up like we used to back in the day when we'd eat the worst tasting cookie or brownie in the world that's hard as a rock. And, sometimes the worst it tasted, this is what's gonna be a really good one, guys. And then 3 hours later, everyone's throwing up like you just took way too much for your own good. It's definitely not like that. I mean, where edibles have grown to now is a great place. Compared to like an actual THC medical edible, or a recreationally legally sold edible, uh, I didn't really feel it in the same way. It was more so like it was like a CBD effect. Like it was just very tranquil, without the psychoactive effect. That's how I felt.
Well, how many milligrams did you eat?
Were you
Whatever.
smoking when you were taking it, Mark? Because like I said, THC would affect that.
Well,
Yeah, we definitely did that, Lo.
Yeah, I definitely did that.
well, there'll be times where I'll just eat them, and say I get a pack of like 10. That's 200 milligrams of Delta 8 THC. I mean, I promise you, if I eat all 10, I will be zooted.
I body 100 milligrams in an edible in a single consumption. I can use as a microdose, but I understand what you're saying.
Mark, so chemically speaking, from that Delta 8 versus Delta 9, obviously, not obviously, it is just a different location of one of the chemical compound groups on one of the rings. And what that does within your body, once it hits the bloodstream, or in this case your stomach, once it hits all the digestive enzymes, is that it's not as potent because of its location on the actual molecule itself, and because of that, it can't be digested as easily. That's a kind of vague and brief description of it, but you'll still piss hot because the metabolites that come from that are still picked up from piss tests. So keep that in mind.
So Travis is a chemical engineer. That picture of him is actually real footage. He's been to space. And come to him with any of your scientific questions.
Travis, can you smoke Kush on the moon?
That's a great question. I've been to the moon, but I've never brought any with me, so I'll have to let you know next time I go.
All right,
As
thanks,
you can
Travis.
see, Travis also invested in Bitcoin because he's been to the moon. So definitely look into that as well.
And then David, real quick.
All roads lead to Bitcoin, baby.
David raised his hand a while ago, so if we're done on this question, because if we're transitioning to Bitcoin in space, we probably are. David, if you have a question, I will very happily puff pass this to you, my friend.
Hey, this is David with I got my roommate with me, Richard Waller. He actually has a question about the cannabis stuff, so I'm gonna let him go real quick. But full disclosure, this is Richard Waller, August 30th, 1995.
What's that, E.T.?
What's up, Mark? Hey, I was telling Rich. We're actually, the Bitcoin actually gets us a good thing into, one thing I wanted to, I don't know if this has already been brought up, but from a consumer standpoint, when you think about, the cannabis industry and us not being able to use cash in order to, or cards, like debit and credit cards in order to purchase everything, from a consumer standpoint, you think, all right, whatever, I got to go to an ATM. But from somebody who's on the other side that's investing or thinking about investing in the cannabis industry or maybe becoming an owner of themselves, that's a whole other expense that we don't think about.
Dude,
Federal legality.
People think, it's really the federal legality. And you think coming into a cannabis business that it's like about the actual business that you're going to be doing, but really you're spending like 70 or 80% of your time figuring out how to move the money around, to organize really everything, because all the proper systems that business normally works off of just don't really apply to cannabis.
Right. Like inventory control,
like compliance and figuring out how to store your money.
Also, how are you reporting every dollar cash? You know what I mean? Like, how is that working? How is that being taxed in comparison
tax because you're bringing all this cash in, you got to transport it, you got to hold it. Then on top of that, I mean, you can argue there are some dispensaries that might be holding more cash than certain banks because of how many people are coming in and who knows how much time.
Well, there are banks that are coming online for the cannabis industry. It's just much more complex than the normal system would be, and there's a lot of compliance steps with every transaction. But it is coming online. And if it were one of the larger dispensaries, especially in California, they would absolutely have a bank account and the way it works is they have armored trucks basically come to your location and pick up your cash either every day, every couple of days, and that service is like a compliance arm that works for the bank, really, or it's a separate entity that just verifies the compliance of all the transactions and charges you a fee, and then they work with the bank and they really hold all the money in one big bank account with the bank. So that's starting to pop up, but it does add a lot of costs onto each transaction to be able to operate that way and be a little bit more official.
So this is David. So the compliance aspect of it, does that not get affected federally, though, since it's still technically not legal on a federal level? Like, can they bypass that since it's not, I guess it'd be like a third party pretty much overlooking who's moving the money and where it's going?
Right. It's basically like a third-party compliance firm that their whole point of their existence is just to verify that the company that is doing the transactions is doing them compliantly. And then they basically have one large bank account. They hold with a real bank, that they hold all their clients' money under their company, which is not technically a bank.
Better be a tax write-off if you ask me.
It is.
So is that just like go ahead, Richard.
Yes, it's like $5,000 a month just for the maintenance, and then it's like 1% to 5% on transactions.
Yeah, that's a lot of money. And that depends on and I'm sure it's partially priced on based on how much income you're actually moving, every 5 or every couple of days. I mean, if you're moving a million,
it's on deposit. So yeah, every time you deposit money, you get charged.
It's a percentage of what you're putting in. So yeah, that should be a tax write-off, especially if you're going into the cannabis industry, because otherwise, if that's just money that's lost,
Oh, but here's the other shitty thing, man. There are no tax write-offs in the cannabis game. So there's this law called 280E that was created to take down Al Capone. I don't remember the exact story, but that's how they got him. It's tax evasion. Basically, they made the tax code so that if you run a business trafficking any type of...
That's why federal legality is so important.
You cannot write off any of your expenses. So, as a business owner, I mean, whereas typically you have all of these operating costs to offset, so you don't have to make that much of a profit margin to be a profitable business. In cannabis, you could have 50% margins and still be underwater because you can't claim most of your losses.
You can't write off anything? Oh my god, that is... The deck is literally stacked against y'all. That is fucking ridiculous.
Simple, but pretty much. Effectively, it's definitely rigged.
That is absolutely... I mean, just the hoops that y'all have to jump through, and I know there's a million more that we haven't even talked about in the last, 5 minutes. My first question for you, one, is, is this the Garda you're talking about that comes and picks up your money, or is it, a whole different company specifically for weed companies?
Yeah, it's a whole different company that we pay.
Oh my god. So you got that, then you've got the deposit fees you need to pay to put your money into a bank account. You can't write off any of your business expenses, which is how companies, thrive in the real world of business. It's like it's completely unfair. They're literally just rigging the game against you to where it's going to be very hard to be successful and create any kind of longevity.
But the issue is, as long as it continues to be illegal federally, there's really nothing a state can do about that, because that's a federal tax code.
Right, yeah.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but from what I understand of the industry, is that the reason why this subgenre or the subgroup exists is because since it's not federally legal, you can't put that money in a federal bank. And so the reason why its effect on the market is so poignant is because right now this money is having to sit through a different business entity just so it can be in a bank, because federally it's like we're having to use a cheat code, a loophole to store money, and it's one of the things that needs to be fixed, that is taking so long to create legality, because they have to rewrite all of these tax codes.
So do they tax y'all like you're a real business federally?
Oh yeah, that's the thing. You just can't write off anything.
Oh, so they're just basically just double, well, not double dipping, but they're just fucking you both ways.
Rob, your hard place.
Mm-hmm.
So outside of the business aspect of things, what needs to happen in tax codes, you mentioned that all the money cannot be stored in a federal bank because it's not federally legal. So because you're using that third-party compliance and validation company, I've got to imagine that, as Slater mentioned earlier, it's starting to get crony, starting to get dirty. So I don't know if this is kind of the end of where this was going, but what is the next step to make it, what is the next step in the direction of making it federally legal? Because recently I was exposed to a variable volume vaporizer, which I feel like at that point, once people can control the quantity that they're intaking at that precise of a level, I got to think that from there, all it takes is an updated measurement system to determine how high somebody is, and then at that point they can go about creating federal laws and make it kind of a scale.
Cannabis got the patent for the weed breathalyzer.
Okay, so then
That's probably part of it too. Yeah, I didn't think of that.
Okay, so I guess.
But I know another question.
Hang on, guys. One at a time. Zach, do you want to say something real quick?
I don't know if Travis was done.
I'm all good. You got everything I needed. That was kind of what I was going at, when that was coming. But yeah, Zach, go ahead.
Well, I know the other part of that. I know, Trevor, you just mentioned that they got the patent on the weed breathalyzer, but having, my stepdad has been in the kind of airlock system. For those of you who don't know what that is, it's the system that goes into your car after you get a DUI, and it prevents, other DUIs from happening. But from what I've gained from talking to him, the patent on the breathalyzer is one thing, but then you have to be able to measure, the effects, the intoxication effects like you can with alcohol, and the science behind, cannabis testing and its effects on individuals as a whole has not caught up to the patent alone.
That's why it looks so much like a game of 3-card Monte.
Yeah, it's kind of bogus because we all know that, an alcohol DUI is a totally different ballgame than marijuana. The effects are totally different. So until that is figured out, I don't even think it should be tried the same. DUIs ruin people's lives. And I'm not really going to take a stance on, marijuana and DUIs because it's being recorded. But, I don't think they can really move forward on that. That's a tough topic.
Yeah, I'll take a stance. I still do think that you definitely, obviously it depends on your tolerance and everything, but I think it's just going to be a necessary step for it to become federally legalized. The police are going to have to be able to enforce DUIs, and if that's the cost of federal legalization, I think fair enough. I don't know.
So currently in Iowa, Slater, though, if you have any marijuana in your system, you can get a DUI. You could smoke a month ago and still get a DUI.
Well, is it a blood test?
I don't know what they do.
We're talking about a breathalyzer is what they're creating, but for me, and I have PTSD, if you don't want me driving not smoking, there will be there'll be worse than an accident. That would be a really bad thing.
Yeah, they would definitely need to draw some distinctions for medical exemptions, for sure.
So I guess I was going to ask Zach, I guess where you're going with that, if they have to establish federal guidelines on how marijuana impacts people who are avid smokers, who are new smokers, and if they have to establish those lines and create essentially a tolerance calibration curve to move on with that next step of it being federal, how do you go about that? Do you just offer people like a free trial, hey, we'll give you $100 if you come and give us a baseline of like you would do for a drug clinical trial or something like that? Where do you go from there? Or I apologize, I didn't want to interrupt you, but
I think it'd probably be too complex to really create.
They'll never do that.
Yeah, but I do think they should have exemptions for people that need it.
But I think if you're talking, I think he's not wrong in the sense that it starts just with the research. And the research, the fact of the matter, the research hasn't caught up with the technology available. And if that starts with literally taking people in sample trials and figuring out the effects on X amount of dosage of THC and going from there, it's kind of where it starts. It's just the research has to start to follow the technology. I mean, yeah, Travis is right. That would be the smart thing to do. He's a smart guy, but the reality is the U.S. government is a joke, and there's no way they're going to use it. Never. And that would definitely be a privatized study for sure. But it would take a company it would take federal legalization to start any kind of private trial like that.
I would hit up Cannabis. They're the ones who are creating the product.
I mean, you can get the trials going pretty easily. You don't have to be a marketer to figure out to just, allure to stoners. You just say, hey, come get high for free for a day. And then they go, okay, yeah, I'm down. So you could get a pretty good sample size pretty quickly.
From this room.
From this room. I'm like, Slater, wasn't there a sign on the street for that? We'll go tomorrow.
Yeah, let's do it.
No, I do want to get into kind of the corruption part of this. I want to kind of migrate there next, but really quick too. That dispensary we went to last night, like the dispensaries, they don't have a lot of competitive edge on one another, so display's a big deal. And displays in these dispensaries are, one, beautiful, two, super knowledgeable people working there. Bud tenders, that's what Zach does. They can tell you a lot about weed that, even someone who's loved weed for a decade can't tell you at that same level. So, go into the dispensary, check them out. California's got a lot of awesome stuff going on here, and that's why I called them the Mecca instead of Colorado.
Yeah, I mean, it's super cool. If you've been into like a medical dispensary, there's no showmanship. They pretty much got weed in the bins, which is kind of funny. So that's why I love competition, love capitalism. Quick plug. It just makes life better.
Plug capitalism.
I do want to talk about the corruption when I get the floor here.
Yeah, but let's get that up because Slater, I was talking to him yesterday, and he's telling me, just some crazy shit. And I know he can't, disclose a lot of it on a recording for sure. But even if he can just give you guys kind of a little teaser as to what kind of corruption you're seeing in small counties, which makes there's a lot of fucking corruption that's got to be going on all around the country right now within this industry.
Yeah, I think I kind of mentioned that story a little bit earlier, but there was a suicide by one of the board of supervisors in the San Luis Obispo County. It's a pretty small county, but there's a lot of deep agriculture history here, and a lot of people looking to capitalize on the new opportunities that cannabis presents. But California, at least, other states have done this differently, but California has really structured it in a way where it's few winners take all, at least in the retail side of the market, and honestly, for almost in distribution and growing as well, but especially in the retail side. If you want to start a cannabis store in most cities except LA, it's going to cost you $500,000 plus in compliance costs, and you're going to have to do a year plus of hearings and competition, basically, with all the other applicants. And then there's a pretty much opaque decision-making process. Like, they'll release this point system, but in every case, the point system did not actually determine the winners, and there is a subjective decision made behind closed doors by the board of supervisors. And there's been no official reporting on any correlation between the death of the supervisor and the and anything going on with cronyism, but there is a lot of rumors, obviously, in the industry of people just being like, something must have went down there. Those are the biggest, most high-profile cases. They have become the most high-profile cases and hearings in the town halls of a lot of these cities that are starting to open up to the cannabis industry, and a lot of bad shit's happening.
Slater didn't really dive super deep into it, but on the Discord, I just posted a link, and it's in depth. It's from the Cannabis Law Report, so it's got to be true. You can go join the Discord, check out links and resources, and then read up on it. It pretty much goes over everything he just said and then some. It said that this guy was doing allegations of pay-to-play, harassment, and threats, and then he killed himself, basically, because the FBI was going to nail him.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, if that's
a more qualitative example too, which is pretty interesting. Or I guess they're all qualitative, but a more anecdotal example, I guess, is one of my friends that works at the distribution with me and used to work at a dispensary as a bud tender said that the mayor of the town used to come in to the dispensary like once a week and just walk out with a bag of free shit every single time. Just low key buttering her up, because he would be the one that checked her out every time.
Wow. And yeah, I mean, as long as that's public info now too, that I would have loved for y'all to be able to hear the whole story. Public info makes it, so Slater can kind of share a little bit more, which is nice, but the story is fucking crazy. And is it public info as to, Connor, maybe you can skim through the article really quick and see if it alludes to what happened before he finally, did commit suicide.
Yeah, I'll peruse through.
That's like
Yeah, it is public information, so.
that aspect is?
No.
Okay. All right. Then I won't make Slater talk on that.
And then kind of turning to a different page of corruption, when you think about how dispensaries are set up at an all-time disadvantage with the way everything's set up, not being federally legal, you got to wonder if, and none of us in here are criminals, obviously, we're not recorded fine, but you got to wonder if we can fight fire with fire. What I wonder is if you're doing everything on cash, going back to the cash here, how much can an owner really kind of take off the top without the government noticing, right? Because, yeah, you're reporting so much, but how much are you taking home that you're not reporting, that you're not putting into a bank? Without, is there a way for them to report and
Yeah. So I don't know what the exact situation is in other states, but I know they have something similar going on. The way it works in California is you have a system called Metric, the track and trace system, and every single seed that is planted, it starts at the grow, and it's tracked all the way through to the distributor, and it's tracked all the way through to the retailer, to the end product. Really, the only area that the system can be manipulated is at the reporting level of a grower reporting how much weight they harvested. But once they report how much weight they've harvested, that weight, it can't change anywhere in the system. It has to be tracked somewhere in the system. So, I mean, there are people that will get licenses, to my understanding, that will basically ghost distributors that'll just fucking run a license for however many months until they get caught. But nothing can be sold to a non-licensed facility right now because all transactions are recorded in this metric track and trace system, and then the BCC is very closely watching your actions as well.
So what you're saying is there's no room for falling off the truck, Slater, right?
Not really, but the only area there that is possible is, I guess, a grower could hypothetically underreport the weight that they actually harvest, and so that weight would never make it into the system. But if you do that for long enough, you got to think, as the industry matures and people know what a farmer should be yielding off of a crop, that gets harder and harder to do.
Is that what a company like FlowHub does, where they track and they see where all that goes? That's kind of the only one that I'm familiar with, but is that what those guys are there for?
So yeah, there's a lot of ERP systems that have come out to integrate with the metric track and trace system and make cannabis companies' lives a little bit easier. But no, there's only one official government-run software that a lot of these ERPs build on top of to make businesses' lives easier.
Slater, really quick. We talked a little bit in the car yesterday, on the way to the dispo and on the way to the farm, about some of the numbers coming out, and you threw one that just kind of, is fucking mind blowing. Something like 12.5 million pounds of cannabis being grown in California. I forget in what amount of time, and only 2.5 million being sold.
Yeah, so the thing is, I just answered that question as if it's very difficult to make weed disappear in the legal supply chain. But I mean, the stats tell a different story, honestly. But I guess I was answering for the first way, just like from the perspective of a business owner, it is increasingly difficult. Like the California government does everything they possibly can to make it very difficult to get cannabis out of the supply chain. But the stats showed last year, 12.5 million pounds of cannabis were produced legally in the state of California, and only 2.5 million pounds were consumed legally in the state of California. And that is not including destroyed products.
So there's still some room. So that's falling off the truck.
That's 10 million of the 12 million pounds are still falling off the truck. But it's almost impossible from a mechanics perspective. Or maybe I'm just the idiot that doesn't know how to do it. I don't know.
These guys, idiot. Very well.
Yeah, we were talking too. I'm like, I can't wait 20 years from now to see like the Wolf of Wall Street of cannabis movie come out. And I mean, It took us. It took us.
Yeah, Cannabis is pretty epic.
Kid Cannabis.
Pretty similar to Wolf of Wall Street is Cannabis.
I'm saying there's so many gray areas in this right now, where you can break the rules, right? And even though you want to run a company ethically, and I'm not saying Slater would ever break the rules, but there's definitely people out there who want to play the game because they can break the rules really easily. And you can think of a lot of schemes just with how loose the rules are. It's the Wild West right now, and even though it does seem very regulated, these senators and the congressmen and women, they don't really even know where to start as far as regulating this industry goes, as far as running it right. And you're seeing, kind of the mess that's kind of becoming or getting created throughout the past 5 years or 10 years now. It's going to be very interesting to see what stories arise as to who tried to break the rules and finally got popped, because they're going to make a lot of money before they do.
I actually have another good story about that topic. So that's already happening a ton. There's been a ton of crazy stories, but just the one that's been a little bit local to me and our business. Guy named Juan Cisneros, and I can say that one because this is all completely public story. In Buellton, California, is actually the old owner of our farm, and at that time, I think it was the biggest one in California, 50 acres. 50, for some perspective there on the scale of that, 50 acres, you're going to get about 2,500 pounds per acre per harvest if you have a good harvest, and then you're going to harvest 3 times a year. So let's do 7,500 times 50. 375,000 pounds of cannabis per year coming off that property. And just so you know, also, you probably smoke 1 gram of cannabis from the high side per night. There are 454 grams in a pound. So that would be millions and millions and millions of grams.
Anyway, you also got to think about the underground economy. It's the biggest, competitor to any legal dispensary, right? How many of us go to a dispensary for the one-time attraction of, hey, we're there, and then all of a sudden we see what we pay, and then we pay in taxes, and it's like, okay, you almost want to commit to never going to a dispensary again because you can get a lot more, from your neighbor as opposed to. So that, that's something that also you have to consider when they're looking at all those statistics. Slaters, are they accounting for, the underground economy and what's being consumed there?
Yeah, that's just the legal stats that I gave you. So that means that 10 million is going from the legal to the illegal. But yeah, I don't even know what the illegal production is like. That would all be added on top of that.
Yeah, I think going to the dispensary now too, it's really like you're going. It's almost like a field trip. It's like, wow, this is what legal weed looks like. All right, well, I spent $100, so I'm gonna go back to illegal weed. Like, that's what it's turning into, and it's super unfortunate.
But yeah, totally agree. But where I was going with that story, I was kind of giving some background there on because Lo, you were just talking about takedowns and how there's going to be some of the Wolf of Wall Streets of this industry, and this 50-acre farm in particular in Buellton is a great example of that, because what they did is they reported 50 acres of grow space, which obviously you pay for all licensing for those 50 acres, and they ended up growing plants in more areas than that. They have them on the hills. They have them in every fucking square inch you could imagine. Just trying to squeeze every last dollar out of that property. And over time, neighbors got pissed about the weed smell coming over, and they started to. They literally had the cops camping out in a trailer on the fence line of this property, looking out for mistakes, little mistakes, because there wasn't technically something they could take him down for of the grow size. And yeah, eventually got him. But for a while there, there was plants covering this entire property. There was rappers coming in every day asking to start a co-brand or whatever. It was some Wolf of Wall Street stuff for sure. But yeah, then it came crashing down, and that's one of the reasons we ended up having to buy the property. Not having, but being able to. It's hard to get an operational cannabis business right now. You normally have to start from the ground up. It's kind of a cool story, though.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm excited to see what Scorsese can do with whatever other stories arise.
Dwayne's been up here for a while, and I'm sure he's got something either insightful or questions.
Let me see. Damn it.
Oh. Wait, Connor, you gotta puff pass it to him. Puff pass it.
Hey, everybody, how you guys doing?
What up, Dwayne?
We're doing real good.
Good, you guys. Okay, so I've just been listening to all these subjects, and you guys don't know I'm Slater's dad, and I also
I also know Zach really well because he hung out with his Slater's buddy when we were kids. So, hi, you guys. Hi, Slater. And I'm calling. It's like, what time is it? It is almost 4 a.m. for me. I'm sitting in Spain. I'm in the Canary Islands in Spain. I live on a boat now and I'm sailing around the world. Anyway, and as I listen to this, I think, oh my God. So, Slater, I don't even know if you know this, but when I was like 14, and I'm 59 now, I grew my first, whatever, yeah. And I got I didn't get busted on my first one, but eventually I got busted. And so it's like, I remember, and the reality is, I don't even really like smoking weed. It just doesn't, I don't like the way it, but it was fun to grow because, well, it smells good. It's really cool to play with, but the act of doing something illegal is exciting.
It's the thrill. It's why drinking, when you're 16 in high school is fun, and then drinking, it's still fun. It's just not as fun or exciting as it once was.
Right. And the last thrill I got, and then I didn't do it anymore after. I mean, I did it for a while, but the last thrill I got out of this industry, it was about 6-8 years ago. I got a contract to build out an indoor facility in Oakland. And I designed and engineered, it was about 70,000 square feet right down by the Coliseum. And it used to be the Twinkie factory, which is really funny because now they grow dope in there. And
they used to grow Twinkies.
Yeah, it was a drink. They had like the old boards and everything in there. Like there was, that was one thing I was really bummed I didn't like grab in there, because when I was cleaning out, it was this huge empty concrete building, and the reason the guys who did it is they had great security. It's big, huge barbed wire fences around and stuff, so it was pretty easy to, and it was in an industrial area, so it wasn't legal yet. But they were just going out on the edge. But it was illegal too. And going back to the cash thing you were talking about, how to manage your money, they paid me in cash, and it was a hassle in a way. Just carrying around. I remember their whole operation. It was like, what do you do with this? The weight of it, just the money. It's hard to deal with. And but it wasn't legal yet. I mean, they weren't. They were. It was like, there was that excitement of, oh my God, what are we doing? So anyway, I have mixed emotions from this. Watching it going to be legal, and I guess you get a different thrill out of it. But clearly, there's plenty of people still growing it illegally. But then, like you were talking about in the alcohol industry, why can't you just make your own wine and sell it to your friends? Is that illegal? And at what point does it, or beer or whiskey or moonshine or anything? Every industry has the illegality to it. And I'd say even what I do, I was a contractor, and we have a huge issue with it, with illegal contractors working. People aren't licensed. And
Union up, baby.
What's that?
You gotta hit one of those unions.
Yeah, exactly. You got to union up. And so it's the same issue everywhere. And ultimately, organization and trust and marketing wins out in the end. It's like if you're really highly organized, yeah, it's hard, but if you just keep plowing down that line, and then you market the hell out of it to make it so beautiful that it's trustworthy and it's fun, and you can make your marketing angle any way you want. You can be the fun guy, or you could be the serious one, or whatever. And then look at Coke now, right? Not cocaine, but Coca-Cola. It's like all anybody ever recognizes. Pretty soon, marijuana will ascend to that level. And the then Coke wars with Pepsi are a fantastic point. Yeah. So and then let's see, what other point was I going to make? Is oh, I lost my train of thought. Sorry. Anyway, maybe I'll think of it later. But anyway, I just want to chime in all that and say hi to you guys. It's just it's so interesting to sit here and listen to everybody and how this is going. Oh, the federal tax thing, yeah. So what is the situation that it's at now, where it's illegal federally, but they're still collecting taxes on it? So it is, well, what? Or are they just saying, okay, this is okay? So, if, like any other contract, if you take money for something, you're in contract. That defines the contract. If there's no consideration, there's no contract. But there is consideration here with a company called the federal government. So that's a really good legal case for some smart lawyer, and and an industry, because that's the definition of a contract. And so they're taking money, and I can see how they would want to not make it legal, because there's still a lot of people in the world who say, oh, it's not right to have it marijuana legal, and so they can get votes for it. It's political, right? When it becomes legal, the crimes that are federal that keep people from voting, not to make it about the black community, but a large black voting base will then become on the table in America.
Yeah, they definitely want to hold that back. I don't think you have to not make it about that, Trevor. I mean, that's a huge topic that we didn't really touch on yet, which we should. Honestly, it's insane that has continued despite the legalization across the country.
Of course, I wanted to remove the race aspect of it.
Yeah, word. All the people that are in jail for that, for sure.
I think that's crazy too. Sorry, just touching back to what Dwayne's talking about. I got really just frustrated earlier when we brought that up, because I had no idea that you couldn't write off taxes like you do with any other business, and there's got to be something wrong with the government accepting money, and they're taxing you like you're a business, and they're treating you like your business, but they're not allowing you to run like any other business would run. Like that, there's got to be something being breached there.
Yeah, but that like I said earlier, you should read more into the topic of 280E, the tax code by the IRS that prevents it. It was created specifically to have a case against Al Capone, and I think that is why that framework is there. And I don't know if there is a legal argument against it, but
Connor, can you get one of those in the Discord?
If you would like to check out the IRS 280 tax code, it's actually posted in the Discord currently.
Beat me to it.
The link section.
I mean, maybe like an article explainer or something like that on the fucking tax code.
No, I didn't. All right, yeah, I didn't post the actual tax code. I posted an article.
Oh, I'm looking at it right now. This is, dude, you beat me you really beat me to the punch here, Connor. Thank you. But yeah, that is in the Discord. That is in the Discord. He got me this time. I ain't gonna lie. But yeah, that is crazy. I'm gonna read up on this right now. If you wanted to touch on that topic really quick, Slater or Trevor, that you were about to, I guess maybe one of you were going to elaborate on, is what's going on.
I will put the information on the table as I have it. So what happened is, and this is why, or as it's been explained to me, or as I've seen it develop, this is why it's legal, say, in California, but not in New York. Is because, see, we've been legal for so long that people forget the impact that it had when we became legal on our government. But say in a place like New York, where their voting base, like a lot of New York, like a lot of people in New York have gone to jail for selling weed. Like, it's just happened. So imagine when they go legal on a state level, and all of those people can vote in New York. Like, the people who are in power are going to be the people that the people vote for in a more way than it has been in a very long time. Which is why they always tempt us with it, or which is why I always feel like we're being tempted with it, but then it being taken away, because it's dragging us along in a broken system.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of existing incentive for political incumbents to hold down the legalization as long as possible.
I love how all of our conversations go full circle, right? Like, we talk politics, and then, the marijuana discussion all leads all roads lead to Bitcoin as well. So I'm glad everything comes full circle. The only thing that hasn't is space. But we hit that with Travis too, but it's brutal.
Space came full circle right away. We transitioned to Bitcoin and Ethereum, about 20 minutes in, when you had a bunch of people just spewing out space facts in every eye, and there's just like, whoa, like just insane. Just there wasn't too much to talk about at space because none of us know shit about space. But yeah, that is. I'm reading up on 280E right now. This is pretty crazy shit. I think Bitcoin is Connor. I think he made it as like a joke, but also it does hold some substance. Bitcoin is a solid way, or a solid, I guess, way that these businesses can monetize and, I guess, play the game the government's trying to play with them.
That's part of the reason why it was started.
Go ahead, Trevor.
I said one of the reasons that the decentralized money was started was because it's like, hey, for so long, governments have told us as people what to do with our money, but the thing is it's our money, and so we can let our money talk in the way that we want to make our green talk.
Yeah, I don't know if Bitcoin could solve the barriers to entry for businesses in the cannabis industry, but I definitely think a more free financial system would provide for a lot better outcomes.
All right. Does anyone have anything else they want to add to this discussion, or any other questions they want to ask while we've got, I think a lot of valuable people here who know a lot about the industry. Like I said, way more than you'll be able to dive into on the internet and find on any given day. They're working on the battlegrounds right now. So, one, thank you all for being here. But two, yeah, take advantage of, Slater, Trevor, and Zach up here while we've got them for this discussion, because yeah, I mean, I'd assume, in my industry too, when people ask me questions about my line of business for online marketing or about stocks, like I'm just super excited to talk about it because it's what I consume my days with. So, these guys have been consuming their days with it for quite some time now.
Yeah, I could talk to it all day. Yeah. Or we could call everybody up to the stage and we could all explain what we like to do the most when we're high.
Ooh. Who's got the best high recommendation? Slater, should we drink the sleepy juice tonight?
No, because I have to get up like 5 in the morning. But we should smoke a bowl here soon.
Let's do it. Yeah, I mean, if anyone wants to come up and tell us a great suggestion of what you like to do when you get high, that's the topic I think stoners love to talk about. But if not,
I can tell you over here in the Canary Islands and everywhere, all of the good hash still comes straight from Morocco, for whatever that's worth. That's the scene over here, and somehow it's illegal. You can always get it very easily, and I don't know if anybody does anything specific when they get high, but it happens a lot.
I love watching Workaholics. That was my OG. Always Sunny's great to watch. Curb Your Enthusiasm's been my recent obsession. Connor and I watched that a lot. I'm trying to get Slater. I got to show you some Curb Your Enthusiasm before I go back to Chicago. But yeah, I don't know. Anyone have any show recommendations?
Honestly, I still go back to Rick and Morty like no other. Like I can't stop myself.
Word.
Yeah, it's like you just get so tripped out. Or like Big Mouth really got to me, honestly.
I think Big Mouth is hilarious.
Hilarious.
I tried so hard not to like Big Mouth for the longest time. Big Mouth's so disturbing.
Oh, those are great reps.
That or like ice cream.
Oh my god, you don't have to tell me twice.
Yeah, I love
going for like a walk or a hike. Those are great things to do. You go like become obsessed with the way an ant carries a piece of dirt. Like, okay, that's it. That's all I have.
I was just like observing like little random things,
Dude, nature is dope.
Thing a lot cooler to do when I'm stoned is to play pool. Like just endless amount of billiards, man. That is the best.
Oh no, I just zone out. I get very zony.
The same thing I do every day, Pinky. We try to take over the world. but I get you. And that's my show suggestion movie, Pinky and the Brain. It's great for when you're stoned.
Pinky in the
I
Brain?
like watching.
You know, I did want to mention one more thing.
You got it.
Go for it.
Go ahead, Mark.
No, you got it.
No, you got it.
I did want to mention one more thing quickly. I can help before another customer comes in, but something that Dwayne mentioned, you know, all the good hash comes from Morocco. There was a question earlier asked, I think, by Mike about, you know, does different location affect different quality of weed? And if you're growing outdoor, you know, absolutely. Some of our, you know, those traditional classic strains, you know, Afghani, you know, Kush, OG Kush, you know, those are grown in the region, named after the region that they're grown in, and you know, you can only get those genetics and those phenotypes from, you know, those areas, which is, you know, kind of dope.
Afghanistan?
Trevor, maybe you could speak to that more. I've heard that too, but I don't know. Are the origins of hemp in Afghanistan as well?
It depends on which strain you're talking about, but you're talking about Afghani. So what I'm saying is that there are these are subgenres of the plant family, and so each plant family is from a certain part of the world, and so that part of the world is where at birth it came from. Once you start modifying genetics, growth environment, that's all experimentation within an indoor environment. My point that I was going to say is that Mike, you asked for tickers earlier, and Craig was here still. I'm compiling a list of tickers for U.S. wheat stocks, and I'm just going to show all of the valuation details that I have to Craig because he is the best head for that I know of.
Like, who's gonna take the industry?
I can't speak on what he does, but he knows these people from like a personal level. Like, all these people going public, like he knows them on a personal level, which is why he can't talk about it. But at the same time, if I pull him an amount of financial data and I'm like, hey, this is what I'm looking at, he can give me a good idea, and I will make sure that gets into whatever your group chat is.
Yeah, that would be awesome, because I've been looking at Afria and Tilray's merger. I mean, I think that they both companies are making great strides, with Canopy Growth being the leader, and you know, this merger I think is exactly what needed to happen. You know, they're 2 and 3, and by themselves they're not going to catch Canopy Growth. So if you got to combine somehow, and you combine forces, you have a realistic shot of overtaking Canopy Growth as the current industry leader. Who passes them beyond that point, I'm not sure, but that merger is really exciting news. Like I said, it's set to complete in Q2 2021, so in the coming months.
That's what I was going to say, is that when you're that's true when you're looking at the news cycle, but like past performance isn't indicative of forward gains. So news is things that happened in the past.
Right.
So the question is where are we at? Which ones are going to last to completion, and which ones are undervalued currently, so I can start building a position into what is now. Because most of these companies you see, like Curaleaf and things like that, they're actually mutual funds that build all of these independent brands, right? That are in the United States right now, but can't go public. They're operating as OGCs.
Yeah, I'll have Slater actually send you, you know, a link to my site. I just did a breakdown of Afria and Tilray, of their financials with some due diligence on there.
I don't actually have Trevor's number or anything. This is the first
Classic Mike, always plugging his business.
Dude, plug in my free resources. Oh man, my favorite price, free 99. Yeah, no, it's on there though, and I wish I had it pulled up in front of me right now. I don't want to plug my resource too much, you know, it's just literally, I did the financial breakdown on there. So you can see their profit margins, how they've improved and, or maybe, or I guess, increased or decreased in the past year or so. You know, what their margins even look like in the first place, what they look like revenue-wise, all that shit's on there. So might save you a little bit of time there.
I'm building a watch list that pulls companies based on fundamentals and then allows uses technicals to see where it is within entries and exits.
Oh man, I gotta link up with Trevor. He's speaking the language.
Yeah, you guys like 2 peas in a pod. Only two.
When I'm stoned, I get effective.
Only 25-year-old value investor in the world right now.
Just ape into Bitcoin and H-bar and earn your financial freedom. I've been giving you all the keys.
It's all in the V-chain, Slater, you know.
All right. I think we're getting to the point now where we're running out of weed topics and we're going back to Bitcoin. So I'm going to make the executive decision to wrap it up. Thank y'all, Trevor, Slater, Zach, Dwayne, everyone who's been here. Thank y'all for being here in the first place. Thank everyone who's listening throughout this entire conversation. It's been a solid 2 hours or so. But yeah, I mean, this was how I guess we covered a lot of topics that we wanted to cover.
Wait, last thing I want to say.
Yeah.
And Lo, I know you're gonna laugh at this one.
Yeah.
Does anyone else, when they smoke and they're high, when you're outside and looking at trees, all the trees, you just get nug vision. It looks like a nug.
Yes, dude.
Nug vision is not real.
It is real, dude. As soon as Mark showed me it, every tree, you could name the strain on some of them too.
Yeah, I know.
That's Granddaddy Perp right there. I see it. I'm looking at it. But yeah, no, that was that. Thank you for bringing that up, Mark. Nug vision is a real thing, and it's a growing problem. But
Yo,
yeah,
Mike,
yeah.
hit a quick Discord plug for the post-discussion
Mhm.
coffee room.
Yeah. So if anyone wants to be involved in that, we do this every week. It's not always about weed. I know it's a topic we've wanted to do for a while now, but you can make topic suggestions in there. You can ask questions if you don't want to speak on stage for whatever reason. You can see links and resources on things that we're talking about through the entire discussion, such as tax code 280E, such as Humboldt County or Humboldt. Sorry, I guess. What was it?
Because you're saying Trinity County. The reason why it's Trinity County is because all three of those cities are like Humboldt. This what you see in Humboldt is true for all three of the cities of Trinity County.
Got you. Yeah, Connor posted an article in there about some moratorium or something banning cultivation of weed there. So shit like that. We sort of threw it in there through every discussion we have, so you can really follow along if you don't know about the topics we're discussing. That way you can kind of stay in the loop and you can read more in depth about these topics that we're discussing if you're unfamiliar. So yeah, if you want to get in there, again, I do everything for free. It's in my bio, the instructions on how to get there, and I think it's also in our bio for our club. If you haven't joined our club already, teach us something cool. Tap that greenhouse. Go and give us a follow. Like I said, every Wednesday at 8:30 Central Time, we do these discussions, different topic every week, always cool shit. It's like a book club, but for learning cool shit. So, yeah, I think that's all the plug-in I got left tonight. I'm going to wind down with Slater, and we're going to head to the Discord actually to have a post-discussion coffee chat. On what we want to go from here and what topics we're considering for next week. So feel free to join us there.
Yeah, I love Lowe's description of this thing as the book club, kind of, or just like, I don't know, modern version of a book club. I love having an excuse to learn about something every week and talk about something every week, and I appreciate all you guys participating.
Oh yeah, dude. Compounding value is value, and not just money. Compounding knowledge is a real thing. So, yeah, cool shit. Connor, do you have anything you want to say before we do dip?
I just want to thank everybody for coming, and this is always, a highlight of my week. I do love learning about new stuff, so cheers to you guys.
All right, fellas. Thank you all for being here again. Y'all have a great rest of your night. Happy token, and we will see y'all next week.
Peace.